Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a review on the relatively new Kylie Cosmetics palette. This is the Burgundy palette, which is the second one she's ever released. I believe this was around $40, but I'm not too sure the price off the top of my head, so I'll link it below. So this has just turned up today. This is what I'm wearing today, so I'll get into the whole application of the shadows as well a bit later on. So in terms of the packaging, as I said in my last video when I reviewed the bronze palette, I'm not a massive fan of the packaging itself. It's cardboardy and it's quite cheap. It's exactly the same as the bronze palette, although of course the I guess you would call them tears on the eyes match the colour of the palette, but that's both of the palettes there. This one is definitely my favourite out of the two that she's released. I love the colour range in this. I've been looking for a palette very similar to this sort of shade range for a while. So obviously it's kind of burgundy and purpley tones, which I've been trying to find a high street alternative for this for a while, way before this palette released. And like I said, I've been looking for burgundy kind of palettes for a while, and I've never really found any true burgundy colours on the high street, so that was probably the main reason that I bought this. And I do think that the shade range in this is really good. And then it did come in exactly the same cardboard packaging as the bronze palette, although of course this just has the burgundy stripe down the side, much like the bronze palette and her lip kit palettes, where the packaging corresponds to the colours of the products themselves. And then you just get the usual eyeshadow cards that you get with the palettes. So this is the palette itself. I'm also going to include up close shots of all of the individual colours so you can really see. So this, what's new with this palette is that it has three shimmery, really shimmery colours, which are these three here, but I'll get to those in a second. There are, I believe, two mattes and the rest are satin, but I'm not too sure off the top of my head. I will get to swatching them. So the colours that I used today, I used Naked in the highlight. This was quite a dark highlight colour on me. I would have preferred it to have been lighter. I kind of get that she didn't want to repeat herself like she did with the bronze palette, where the highlighter in this is much more something that I would go for. But I kind of imagine that she didn't want to include the same colour in the palettes twice. So I'm going to get round to swatching these now, and of course I will include up close swatches of everything. One thing I will say when I actually use these is there was quite a lot of fallout when you're actually picking up the shadow, but when you went to actually apply it to your lid, there was next to no fallout. The pigmentation of these shadows is absolutely amazing and they apply so beautifully to the lids. So in terms of a first impressions application, I do really like this palette. And what I also do is I will include swatches of the burgundy palette next to the bronze palette, just so you can get a comparison. So Naked is more of a satin colour. It doesn't really show up that much on my skin tone actually. It by no means matches my skin tone, but it is quite dark that it doesn't really have a highlighter effect, which is what I would have liked. But if you are deeper skin toned, I think this would be really good. And then the next colour we have is Beach, which is kind of like a true brown colour, and that swatches really well as well. I'm going to include all of the swatches at the end. And in the bronze palette, I would say that is probably most similar to Tiger Eye in the bronze palette. And then we have Penny, which is like a true burnt orange, and this is a matte, and that swatches really well as well, but it is a bit patchy. But I think that's kind of the case with most matte shadows, is that they are more buildable than others. You do need to build them up a bit more. And then the first shimmer in the palette is called LA. I believe all of the ones that are named after cities are the shimmers, and this is just a true gold shimmer, and that is super pigmented. I've actually used this one as well today, just in the centre of my lids. And then my favourite shadow in the palette is Burgundy. This is obviously what the main shadow in the palette is. I believe what she's done, or what she's going for in her palettes, is much like in the bronze ones, where you have the orange shade in the middle, where it's like a pop of colour. I guess you would say standout colour is always going to be the centre ones. So that is definitely my favourite colour in the palette. And then we have Dubai, which is a much more of a true dark purple than Burgundy, and that is a shimmer as well. And then moving on to the bottom row, we have Brick, which is, I would say it's almost more of a purple with a hint of brick red in it. It's, again, that seems to be matte, and that swatches really well. And then the last shimmer we have is called New York. This is like a dark brown shimmer. The pigmentation of especially the shimmers is amazing. And then lastly we have Almond, which is a very deepened plum. So those are all of the colours from the Burgundy palette swatch. What I'm also going to include now is a close-up of the Burgundy palette swatch on the top row and the bronze palette swatch on the bottom row. Not to compare the shades, because by no means are they exact dupes for each other. Obviously they're two completely different palettes, but just so you can see the comparison between the two palettes that she has brought out. And I would definitely say that I much prefer this one over the bronze palette. It's much more of a unique palette. The only thing I wish is that the Naked highlighter colour had been switched with the Jasper from the bronze palette, but obviously, like I said earlier, I can see that she didn't want to repeat the shadows, and obviously that is good good if you are darker skin toned that you do have a alternative as a highlight colour. One thing I'm going to go through now is what I'm actually wearing on my eyes, if I can remember. So like I said, I have Naked as my highlight colour and also with my tear duct. Then I have Beach actually on the lid as well, and then I used Penny in the crease, and then I used Burgundy just underneath my lash line. I'm not too sure this goes with this lip. I think it probably is a bit too dramatic, but I do really like this colour. Like I said, it's my favourite in the palette. And then I have LA just in the centre of my lid, and I believe that is everything. I don't think I used any more. Actually, I do think I used a bit of Dubai just on the outer V of my eye, but I'm not too sure. I did apply this quite a while ago. So overall, I don't have any negative feedback on this palette. The only thing is, like I said, I'm not a massive fan of the packaging. I think especially for the price you pay, it does look quite cheap. But that being said, these are really sturdy. I'd just rather they be plastic because I think that's going to be a lot more durable in the long run. I also wish that she had have included a mirror instead of just the Kylie logo, especially for on the go. And I just think that the shadows themselves in the packaging, it does look quite cheap because of the cardboard. So yeah, the only drawback to this product really is the actual packaging for me. I know a lot of people do quite like this, but I just think especially for the price you pay, they could have done a better job on the packaging. But other than that, as the first impressions, I am really impressed with this palette. The pigmentation, even on the matte shadows, is amazing. So I would really recommend this because, like I said, I haven't been able to find any kind of drugstore alternatives for this on the high street. And I've been looking for a burgundy palette for a long time, so I'm really happy that I got this. I would say if you are thinking of deciding whether to get this one or the bronze palette, definitely go for the burgundy palette. So that was my quick review on the new Kylie Cosmetics Burgundy palette. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you next time.